Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ness. I like to talk about books. If you're new here, bless you, you're going to be thinking who the hell is that and what is she looking like? Recently I've been sporting some looks for the 90s. Previously I've been 90s secretary, now I'm 90s sports enthusiast. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm actually on my lunch break from work and I am having the most terrible work day ever. And the only thing that seems to cheer me up at the moment is talking about books. So I just wanted to film a really relaxed video on my lunch break, just generally having a book discussion. I didn't want like a properly produced video. I just wanted to sit down and just talk to someone about the things that I enjoy. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the 10 book series that I won't finish and the 10 book series that I will put an effort into finishing. So 20 book series is in total to discuss. So let's get cracking. So the way that I'm going to do this is one book series that I'm not going to finish, then one that I will, and one that I won't, etc, etc. Sort of like just to break it up a little bit. So we're going to start off on a negative foot, obviously, and talk about the first book series that I won't be finishing. So the first series that I'm probably not going to ever finish is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I read the first book this year and I had really high expectations for it because I really like fairy tale retellings, and this is a fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast. So I had really high expectations, but unfortunately it didn't deliver. I thought the writing was a little bit too cringy. The whole DC thing was just, I couldn't get away with that. I know a lot of people, this is one of their favourite book series, so I'm not knocking the series at all. I thought it was very original and it was a great take on fairy tale retellings. Unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy any of the characters and I thought the twist at the end was really predictable. So I don't want to put my time and effort into continuing with the next two books in this series. Next is a book series that I'm hoping to finish, and that is the Wanderness series by Libba Bray. I believe this is 3, maybe 4 books in this series, I'm not sure. I've read the first book and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. At the time when I was reading it, I had some concern over whether I was actually liking it or not, but in the end, when I finished it, I realised how much the book had actually accomplished in this space. It was a really fun read. I really enjoyed the characters, the setting. I thought it was really original. It was mysterious. And it's, even though I read it the first time round 4 years ago, I actually find it really memorable to this day and really look forward to finding the time to rereading it so I can move on to book 2. That's mainly my issue with all of these series, is I like to binge read a series. So actually getting around to progressing with the series would require me to go back and reread the rest of the books that I've already read. But in this case for the Diviners, this is definitely one that I'm looking forward to rereading. Anybody who likes young adult fantasy, I think would enjoy this. It's set in like the 20s in New York, and there's a whole gang of friends that are trying to defeat this mysterious spirit who is definitely dangerous. There's also like a museum of dark things in here, which is really cool. So I'm looking forward to progressing on with this series. It's probably one of my most memorable from YA. So going back to another series that I wouldn't finish is the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I thought this book was terrible. I rated this 1 star, which is generally a rating that I don't usually give to books, but there was nothing redeeming about this book, and I know a lot of you enjoyed it, and I just gotta be honest, I don't understand. I love the concept of this book because I like circuses or like festivals and stuff. I worked at Cirque du Soleil and it was one of the best experiences of my life, so I'm open to like kooky circus things, but this just like was weird. I didn't get it. I didn't get like the Venice stuff. I didn't get the twist at the end. I didn't get the characters. I didn't like any of the characters, and I didn't think that it was that well written either. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this book purely because I just didn't get it, and I can't recommend something that I really didn't enjoy. Caraval stands are going to come out and downvote this video, I know, but please explain to me in the comments. If you can give me a great explanation for why you like this book, it might maybe change some of the opinions that I've had from this book, because purely and simply I just didn't get any of it, if I'm honest. So now I'm going to stop before I really offend this author, because that's really not my goal with any of this, and move on to another series that I'm going to finish eventually. So the next one is An Ember in Ashes. I absolutely adored this book. I have book 2 in a cover that matches this, and the main reason that I stopped reading them was because when the third book came out, they didn't have it in the matching cover that I had in book 1 and book 2. Personally, I think these are the best covers that the series ever had. I don't understand why they stopped. I think they look absolutely badass. So when the third book came out and when I knew the 4th book was going to come out, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to pause pause this, and when the final book does come out, I'm just going to buy them in a matching set because that's just the kind of person that I am. Not realising that this book series would just go on and on and on. Although the final book, I believe, is out now. I love the edition that they've brought out. Not as much as these, but I do love it, so I will be buying the box set of them and then sitting down and binge reading this series. I can't describe exactly what it was about this series, but this was one of those rare books that actually kept me up at night because I had to know what happened. The characters were really unique and engaging, and I had a really deep connection with the characters. The plot is necessarily not something that I haven't read before. It's not that unique, and it did remind me of a lot of books that I'd read at that time. I'm sure one of them was by Marie Lu, but I read about 4 or 5 books that were very, very similar, and the rest of them I didn't quite enjoy. So when this one came along and just blew me away, this just made it even more special. It's well written and the pacing is great. It's actually a really long book for what it is. It's this typical trope of being on opposite sides of good and bad and coming together and working for a common goal to sort of like take down the government. The main character's brother is arrested for treason and she joins a rebel group against the Empire, if that is correct, and the main boy in it is working as a soldier for the Empire. I've heard nothing but great things about this book, so if you haven't picked it up yet, I would Google this and have a look more into it to see if it's something that you think you would enjoy. Like I said before, of its kind, it is definitely a standout. So I can't wait to sit down with the box set and binge read this series. Another one that I'm not going to finish, which is pretty much like a golden oldie, is Fallen by Lauren Kate. I read this book when I was about 15 years old on the back of my Twilight days, and for some reason the cover really reminded me of Evanescence and Amy Lee. If you don't know who they are, you're maybe too young to be here. Like, when you look at this, do you not just think of like All of Me by Evanescence? I wasn't a very picky reader as a kid, and I enjoyed pretty much anything that was put in front of me. Like, I really enjoyed the Twilight series, but for some reason this book series, as a 15-year-old, I was just like, this is not good. And I enjoyed Hush Hush as well at the time. I can't really remember what this is about. I remember it being specifically quite dark. I think there was a fallen angel in a dark boarding school and a forest, something like that. I can't remember. If I'm honest, I don't think it was particularly highly received at the time, even though it was a bestseller. I'm trying to really remember what this book was about, but all I can actually like come to right now is the accolade that's on the cover by PC Cast, who is the author of the House of Night series, saying that this was sexy, fascinating and scary. I can't remember it being any of those things, and considering the books that you write, PC Cast, that's questionable too. I can't believe I used to like them as a kid. Like, looking back, I'm like, what are you doing with your life? So yeah, Fallen wasn't great back then, but I can't imagine it's actually aged any better right now. Back to the good chit chat. So the next we have The Poppy War, which is a book that I've just read, and usually I can go quite far between reading books 2 and book 1. I finished this about 2 weeks ago and I'm absolutely dying for book 2. I went to buy it for myself brand new, which is something again that I don't do. I'll hold out for it in a second-hand shop, but I had to carry on with the series straight away, and I think someone may have bought it off my Amazon wish list. So if that's the case, Christmas Day is cancelled and that's all I'm doing. I really love this series so much. I'm glad I left it to this point in my life to read it, because I feel like at this point right now I have a true appreciation for this book. I do have a full review discussion, which is a couple of videos ago, if you want to hear more thoughts about the series or what this book is about. But if you haven't read it, highly recommend you going and finding some information about it. It's truly great. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and I can't wait to get around to reading book 2. So back to ones that I'm not going to finish, and I'm going to be talking about the Noughts and Crosses series by Mallory Blackman. This is in no way a bad book series. I've read book 1 and I rated 5 stars. The reason that I can't continue with the series is because the ending of book 1 absolutely ruined me. This is another one that I read when I was about 16 years old, and yes, this book is suitable for someone that age, but for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just overly emotional. I cried for days after reading this book, and still the feeling that I got of the ending, like, I can still like bring that feeling to the surface. I think it's traumatized me, if I'm honest. This is a Romeo and Juliet-esque story where there's 2 very distinct classes of people, and the main female character is a black woman and the man is a white male, and they're on different levels of society. So she lives in this really upper class society and he is sort of like a slave, and they fall in love, and obviously things aren't going to go too well. So yeah, I just can't cope with like the upset that this series brought me. I did read a plot summary for the rest of the books on Wikipedia and was like, nope, 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 I can't read them words on paper. I can't read how that unfolds. So yeah, great series. Highly recommended, just not one that I'm emotionally prepared to finish. Next, returning to the book series that I will finish is book 1 in the Heroes of Olympus series, The Lost Hero. I absolutely love Rick Riordan's world for the Percy Jackson series. If you're not new here, you'll absolutely know that. I won't need to tell you again. I've read the first book and I really enjoyed it, and I just need to get around to reading book 2, 3, 4 and 5, which I own, but other things have just been popping up on my TBR. These books are like twice the size of the Percy Jackson books and not as easy to read. I did sit and read the Percy Jackson books in a binge. I read 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 in about 5 days, but this one took me about 2 weeks to read, purely because it's in different points of views and it's not as simple and straightforward to read, and it's just so big. So I'm giving myself a little break from the series, but I'm hoping that this one will be one that I can pick up and finish by January. If you haven't read the Percy Jackson series, I would recommend starting with that one and then moving on to the Heroes of Olympus, which is sort of a continuation of the Percy Jackson series. I do have like a 50-minute video where I talk about them books. If you want to know any information about it, it'll be back on my channel in around about June time. But these are fun books that I'd recommend for readers of any age. So another series that I won't finish, but I read the first book and actually enjoyed it, is the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This is a trilogy, I believe, and I read book 1 and I really enjoyed it. It's like a steampunk young adult fantasy novel, and I love steampunk urban fantasy sorts of things. And I first read this again when I was about 15 or 16 years old, and what happened was I basically just left it too late between finding the first book in a charity shop and finding the second book secondhand. I still have never found the second book secondhand, if I'm honest, after all these years, because I would have actually picked it up out of interest if I'd seen it. But then all the stuff about Cassandra Clare came out, about, you know, like the incesty stuff, and I just thought, that's not really an offer that I want to be supporting with my time and money. So I just decided that I was gonna just give up on this series altogether, even though I enjoyed the first book. It was some genuine fun that I had with this book. I really liked the characters, I really loved the world and the setting. That was something that I just didn't find in her other series, the more popular one, the Mortal Instruments, that one. So that I enjoyed this one made me really happy at the time, but I'm 27 now. I just don't think that this is one that I would want to sit down and reread and then buy again. So yeah, that book is now gone and the series will not be continued. Next to finish is Eve of Man by Giovanna and Tom Fletcher. Giovanna Fletcher has just won I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I didn't watch it, but that might make you more aware of who she is as a person. This series is one that I've raved about a lot. The first book is one of my favourite books of all time. The second one came out this year and it was a little bit of a letdown, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm still eagerly waiting for the third and final book to come out in this series. This is a young adult dystopian fantasy where the main character is a young girl who's the first girl to be born in something like 40 years. The only women that now exist in this world are a lot older and they're past childbearing age, so really she's the only childbearing female that can save the world as it is. It's a very far-fetched plot, but the characters are really good and the plots are really good. The action and the adventure are very good as well. So if you haven't read this, I think I have like another video on this one as well. Is this video just going to be me just recommending everything else to you? Go and watch it. But if you do like young adult dystopian and you're looking for something that's just a little bit different and kooky, go look at this. Okay, so I've not actually trashed a series in a few books, so let's just get to that. So next we have the Shatter Me series by Tahara Murphy. I read this book maybe when I was about 20, which is 7 years ago. I feel so old. And it was actually quite a quick read at the time. I think I read it in a day. It's about a girl who has this magical ability where anyone she touches or anyone who touches her ends up dead. And at the start of the story, I think she's being held in this institution, but then she's broken out, and that's where the story really starts. This seemed like the most basic YA book that I had ever read, and I just didn't enjoy it. I think a lot of other books have done the whole like touch is death thing better. There's a few that I know I've read, but I just can't bring them to mind right now. I know some people really love this series, but I can imagine that it hasn't actually aged very well. But I commend the author because at the time there was nothing like this about. And the covers are really pretty too. But I I really didn't enjoy this book, and I knew as soon as I closed this book that I was going to get rid of it and I would not be picking up book 2. This was a staple of Booktube back in the day, and I think that mainly that's why I read it, but also because it's a genre that interests me, and I just wish that I hadn't picked it up, and I felt like a lot of the hype was undeserving. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop. I'm sorry to Horror Mafia, I like your other works, just mainly not this one. Another series that I'm hoping to finish but I've been putting off intentionally is the 3 Dark Crown series. I think there's 4 books in this series, or maybe there's 5, I'm not sure. But I own all of these and I've read all of them bar the last one, which I got as a present for last Christmas. But I don't know if it's just me, but I've put off reading the final book because I know once I've read it and I find out the ultimate ending, that is it. That's that series done with. And the ending of a series can ruin how you felt about the entire series if you don't think that it's done in the best way. And I've loved every single book in this series, especially the first one, which was my absolute favourite of all time. This is one that I have recommended so highly, so I'm scared to find out how it ends. This is a young adult fantasy where 3 sisters are born and they're all princesses, but only one of them can become the queen, and they have to fight to the death once they get to the age of 16 to see who's going to be the next queen. All 3 of them have different powers, and this is very typical of this world. This is how all queens are chosen. The plot again is a little bit out there and kooky, but the actual characters and the 3 individual storylines running parallel to each other are fantastic. I love every single one of the girls as individual storylines, and they live in different parts of their world, so you get 3 different points of view, and I just love it. And there is so much fun and there's so much enjoyment to be had in this small book, and I loved where the series was going. I know that I do need to sit down and read the 5th one, but I feel like when I know I do, I'm just going to have so many panics. Like, I just want to love it. I want to love it, and I hate putting that expectation on myself. I just sound like such an idiot. I just love books, okay? If you haven't read it, recommend it for a fun, quick, exciting read. Next on the chopping block is one that I think I'm just going to be hearing gasps all over the world. Is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I read book 1 and I didn't really like it. I wasn't impressed by it, but I thought it was well written. I didn't like the whole alternative world plot, and I didn't think the main characters were very memorable. I knew that this series would take up a lot of my time if I wanted to sit and read it all, and I just didn't want to dedicate my time to it. I wish I had loved this novel, I really do, but I don't, and I feel like the time that I could be spent carrying on with this series could be spent on her other works, which sound more interesting to me. Like Vicious sounds like a plot that would interest me more than the rest of this series, so that's why I got rid of this book, and I don't intend to carry on with the rest of the series because there's just other things out there that she's written that I think I would enjoy more. And I really appreciate what V.E. Schwab has done with this book. It's original, the world building is great. I just purely didn't like the plot, and I couldn't tell you who the characters were. I know some people absolutely love this, even people that don't read often, who I just know outside in like the real world, have recommended this to me, and I've had to say, sorry, I didn't like it, and they've been like, what? But yeah, it's a shame. I wish I had, but I didn't. Going back to one that I want to finish is one that I've had for a really long time, and I actually have books 2 and 3 in this. I just know that I need to sit down and reread the first one because I can't properly remember what happened in it, and that's The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is totally shocking because Becky Chambers actually cemented herself as one of my favourite authors after I read this. I've read To Be Taught If Fortunate as well, which is a novella by her, and I rated that 5 out of 5 stars. Love it. I think she's one of the best female sci-fi authors that are out there at the moment for people that are in my age range or have my book interests. And this was a 5 out of 5 star read as well. I thought it was really unique and it was really fun, and the characters that were in it were very memorable and they were easily to get attached to. I left it so long between book 1 and getting book 2 as a present that I want to go back and reread this one, but then book 3 came out and now I think book 4 is out, so I'm just like, I just need to wait until I have them all and sit down and read them all in one go. This is about a main character who joins a kooky crew on this ship that's seen better days. It's not like kept in the best shape, but they're definitely like a very close family unit, and they've been contracted to build a hyperspace tunnel, but there's like mysteries on board and the crew have secrets, and it's like unraveling all these secrets, and they're also building this hyperspace tunnel through an area of space that has like wars going on and stuff. It's like a battlefield, so it's a great adventure and it's really fun. If you like sci-fi books or books set in space Would recommend this one. It reads more like a new adult than adult as well. It's just something new to add to the sci-fi genre and I love it. Okay, we are so close to being done. Next is the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. I read this first book about 6 years ago. It's an adult historical fantasy with like an alternative time warpy kind of time travel-y weird thing. Basically the main character travels back in time through some like Highland stones and ends up like hundreds of years ago when like Scottish men were apparently like really hot and cool, but I don't know. This is actually a hella popular novel. This has been rated over 800,000 times on Goodreads and is still maintained an average of 4.23, which is impressive. And I think I did rate this book 4 stars as well. I think this book genuinely had a great concept. I'm just not overly fond of books that are heavy adult romance. That was just very off-putting for me, although I did love the historical context of it and I wanted to continue on with the series just to stay in that world. And for someone that doesn't like romance, I thought the romantic element was really, really cute and hot and really loved the couple that was going on, and it felt very realistic and the characters were acting like real people would act in real life, which I appreciated. But this is a long series. I think there may be like 8 books in the series and they're hella chunky. My grandma's read them all, so I kind of just ask her where the plot is going. There is a TV series of this as well, but I don't know if it got to the end of the plot of the stories, but I haven't watched them. But just generally, this isn't a genre that I enjoy reading. It's not something I wanted to dedicate my time to, although I did appreciate it for what it was. So if you like adult romances and haven't read it, it's worth picking up. Next I want to finish is the Frostheart series. I'm not sure how many books is going to be in this series, but it is a relatively new middle grade series I've spoke about a lot on this channel. I have recently acquired book 2 and I love how much attention to detail goes in these books. The author, who is also the illustrator of these, has done a truly amazing job at making these books very exciting for readers of all ages. I really appreciate the art in it and the plot is really unique and great too. This would make a great Christmas present if you have like nieces or nephews, or if you are a middle grade reader yourself. I would recommend reading this. I truly enjoyed it and there is so much content in this. Even as an adult, this took me 2 weeks to read and I rate it 5 out of 5 stars. It's a great book about friendship and family values and dealing with people that try and shun you as an outcast. So it's got some great morals in here that I think everyone would truly appreciate. I have so much information on this on my channel that is readily available if you go and look back through my videos. But yeah, if you like middle grade and you like things that are just really great values about friendship, check this one out. It's illustrated and it's beautiful. Next we're talking about the Throne of Glass series, and surprisingly I got very far in this series. I think I made it 5 books in before I just thought to myself, this needs to stop. I even made a whole gush video about how much I loved the second book in the series and how it was one of my favourite YA books of all time, but this series just went in a direction that I didn't enjoy and it just put me off the entire series altogether and I got rid of all the books. This obviously is by Sarah J Maas, and this put me off Sarah J Maas books completely. I didn't like her Court of Thorns and Roses series, but then I've read Crescent City and I thought it was absolutely amazing. I think Sarah J Maas has definitely found her sweet spot with that series, so I'm excited to continue that one. But the Throne of Glass series is one that I won't be revisiting and I won't be finishing. There is so much stuff in the Booktube community about this series. I'm pretty sure everyone has some understanding of what this book is about, so I'm not going to talk about it in too much depth. But the reason that I stopped reading it was because it just introduced too many characters that I didn't like, and it changed some characters' personalities to suit the storyline as well, which I just didn't like. Some of the characters that I really loved ended up being people that I didn't like anymore, and I don't know, I just didn't enjoy the direction that it was going. I don't think I'm the only person that necessarily stopped at book 5 as well, which was an absolute slog to get through. Nothing happened and it introduced a new love romance who I thought was quite negative. I didn't agree with his tone or the actions or his behaviour either, and I thought there was better candidates. So yeah, I didn't like the direction of this one, so I packed this one in. The end is in sight for this, I swear, I'm sorry. This is going to be just a long rambly video. Next is These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. I read this book when it first came out in 2013 and I just never got round to picking up the second one. But actually last year I did find book 2 and book 3 in hardback for 10 pence each in a charity shop. How absolutely lucky am I? And since then, I just haven't got around to rereading the first one because new books are just coming in my TBR that I'm just wanting to read all the time to dedicate myself to sitting and rereading this one. And there's also an Ember and Ashes, which I think I'd rather revisit, and The Diviners before getting around to reading this one. This was a really well written young adult space fantasy. The main character is like an upper class girl, and there's also like a male lower class boy working on the ship, and there's an accident, an emergency on this ship, and they have to leave in like a pod and end up on this planet that is being terraformed. A lot of this book is about adventure and survival and being on this planet, and the description of this, how this planet works and what it looks like, is really, really great. And it's sort of like what you'd imagine if you were on a terraformed planet in somewhere in the distant universe. But there's a lot of like secrets and stuff to unravel, and it's quite mysterious. So if you're looking for a great adventure with some fun casts, something that's just generally very well written, I would recommend this one as well. I'm hoping when I come around to rereading it, maybe like 8 years down the line, that I still enjoyed as much. Was drawn into this by the beautiful cover, I'm not gonna lie, but this really delivered as a book itself. And the final book series, number 10, that I'm not gonna finish is the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I've read book 1, The 100,000 Kingdoms, and I just thought that it was okay. And I decided to give this book to Rebecca because I'm ideally not going to read the rest of the series. I loved how original it was and how whimsy it was. It really made me think of like a Final Fantasy game. That's what kind of vibe I got. But I didn't like the plot enough to go out and buy book 2 and continue on with this series. I think the series also has different characters in every book, and I'd heard that the rest of the books weren't as good as the first one. So I decided that book 1 wrapped up this world enough for me that I didn't want to continue on with it. And I also have the 5th season to read, which is another series by her, and I would just rather spend my time reading that one because I've heard much better things about it, and I think the plot is more in line with what I'm looking for out of a book. So this is another one where it's not necessarily a bad book, I just don't have the time to dedicate to finishing it, and I'm not that interested in finishing it either. I'm happy with what I read, and I loved the tone, and it made me excited for getting into the 5th season. It did everything that I wanted it to. That was that. And the final book series that I'm hoping to finish, number 10, is Children of Blood and Bone. I don't have the first book physically anymore because I gave that one to Rebecca, but I do have book 2, which I found secondhand on the week that it was released in the UK, and I was like, oh my god, my luck just continues. The series gods just know which ones I need to be finishing. And this was another book that I really enjoyed. It's a young adult fantasy that takes its world building inspiration from Africa, and it's truly perfect in its magic system. It's so unique. So if you're looking for something that's in young adult that's different, that has a truly well developed unique storyline and magic system, I would recommend looking into this one as well. But this one does have a trigger warning for grief. Some parts of this were actually really upsetting. I just felt really, really connected to the main character, and I thought his storyline was fantastic. It was a little bit insta-lovey, I'm not gonna lie. Didn't truly like that, but the characters that were in it were really memorable, and they definitely had their own voices. They were unique and not just like 2D that you would find in any book. The author did a really great job with this book, and at some points I felt like it could have ended because the excitement just kept on building and building and building. Usually when you read a book, it starts off high and it sort of like dips in the middle and goes back up for a solid ending. This book was like, it just constantly was just high energy, high excitement, and I really liked where it was going. So as soon as I saw book 2, I had to get it. It's on my list to read in the early half of 2021, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure how many books is going to be in this series. I'm not sure if the plan is for it to be a trilogy, but let me know in the comments if you know what the plan is. And that's it for my chat. My lunch break is definitely over. So I need to get back to my emails. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you this weekend for another video, which will be my 5-star predictions for my 2021 TBR, which is something that you've been highly requesting as well. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe and turn on the notifications. So thank you for watching me talking about books, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!